Okay, welcome back. So we're going to dive right into the demo portion of week 8 here. So we'll be working from this model, and she's going to afford us a great opportunity to take advantage of our technique of using tone paper and white chalk. So with the white hair there, and she has a fairly light complexion, we're going to be able to get that value range by using the white chalk. So let's dive right in here. I've got my drawing worked out so that we have a value study. We're all prepared. And let's zoom in here, and I'm going to start the typical way that I tend to start these things. It's not a rule, and I don't always, but when you've got the eyes working and you build out from there, it tends to work out well for you, since psychologically the eyes tend to be the most important part of a portrait. So that's how I like to start here. So I'll just hit those. I'm going to do my typical approach. I've got my pit charcoal pencil here where I'm hitting my important darks, my important landmarks, establishing where the shadows and the deep recesses are, and then I'll be able to work out from there and use that tone paper as a half-tone light, and then I'll be using more towards the end. I like to save that chalk because that chalk smears around pretty easily. I tend to wait till almost my very last step to get the white chalk in so that it isn't disturbed on the surface. You guys have seen that I'm pretty hard with my drawings, and I really push and pull, and I don't worry too much about if I lay my hand down right on the drawing to make a mark. It's just part of my process, and I've worked things out in a way that it lends itself to my process. Some of the accidental smudging and such, I just incorporate that into my process, but I usually don't want to smear around that chalk too much. It has a nice highlight feeling. It has a nice feeling of sitting on the surface the way a highlight does, and giving a suggestion of the texture of light when I don't smear it too much. So that's my explanation of why we're waiting to deal with chalk until the very last, even though that's the whole point of why this demo is going to be different than some of the previous ones. So I'm charting in here, putting in some of my core shadows, finding again some of my landmarks. I like to find the corners of the mouth. I like to find the center of the mouth. I like to find where the light meets the shadow, those core shadow strokes that I've put along the nose and around the mouth, wrapping around that muzzle of the mouth shape that has shadows wrapping around it, curving from light into shadow underneath there. This really gives me some form. So I'll just continue here, just finding the shape of the shadows so that I can fill it in. I still have the same idea that I've always had. The big landmarks, I should even step back from that to a solid construction drawing that I'm confident in. And then with value, the landmarks that are going to help my drawing hold together so I don't lose it as I push and pull and go through my process here. And the big shapes of light and shadow, what's in light, what's in shadow, making sure that as I make those decisions, I use the shape of the shadow and the direction of my strokes to help convey form. And so I'm finding those big statements and filling them in. And you're really seeing here, I am just wrapping around every single opportunity. Coming down that cheekbone, you saw around the mouth. As I work around the mouth, I have those strokes and those forms going with the form directionally. And that's very helpful for me. So you see me making those big flat strokes. And I'm using keeping a chisel on the side of my pencil there. A chisel tip, so it's flat and I can do large washes of strokes. And you'll use your Ritmo pencil or whatever equivalent to it that you can find. This would be a B pencil. 3B might be a little bit dark. So I started out with the pit, which is darker and denser for my deepest darks. But now I don't want to fight the softness of the charcoal, and so now this is a B pencil. So we'll just continue here, wrapping around and filling in masses of light and shadow. Big washes of strokes. And I'm keeping my values quite light over on the right hand side where the face meets the hair, leaving the tone of the paper for the light. But remember, she has white hair with a lot of translucency, and so even though there's shadow on the hair on the right hand side of her face, in between the light hitting her face and the light hitting the hair, that shadow needs to be very light indeed. Now there are some deep recesses in there that go a bit darker, not black. It just, there's enough luminosity and light bouncing around that we don't quite go to black inside that hair. It just doesn't lend itself to the feeling of a light local color, fairly light skin and very light hair. So each value in its proper relationship. And we're also keeping in mind the idea that hair has form. And so I'm keeping in mind the big masses of light and shadow on the hair, and also I'll be giving consideration to the direction of the hair. So the hair has a sense of volume as well. Don't want to lose that. So I'll continue working down the form here. I'll just get the little drop shadow coming from that tank top shirt there. And I also need to give consideration to what is unique and interesting about this model, because remember, we always do that. Since we can't do everything in these drawings, we make careful decisions about what we will do and what we'll edit out. And so something that we can zoom in here and take a closer look at is how special and unique that white silver mane of hair is there that she has. And so I can put some real darks around it. So even on its shadow side, even the shadow on that, it still feels like it has a very light value. And so I'm going to go quite dark in a few spots in the background. It's going to stay a vignetted drawing. It's not going to be a value drawing, a full value drawing, in the sense that the values are going to go all the way out to the outside of the page. I guess this is more of a character study. But to make it a character study with emphasis on the word character, we've got to get some of those darks around the hair there. So I'm going to do a little bit more detail work on the eye, making sure that I have those drop tones. There's ambient atmospheric light in the room, so as the sphere of the eye turns under and away from us, I've got to get some tones under there. So I'm going in and addressing those deep recesses and the planes that turn under that also get a darker value